The orders came in sealed titanium casing. No names, no questions, no delay. Captain Mason Kincaid had been through this routine before. 27 combat missions, 5 aircraft types, 3 continents. His hands no longer trembled when the red folder landed on his desk. But this one felt different. The base was quiet that night, the kind of silence that comes before thunder. Outside, the Nevada desert stretched endlessly under a pale, watchful moon. Inside, the mission control room, only 4 people stood. The base commander, the intelligence officer, the drone systems tech, and Mason. The folder was opened. Satellite images, heat signatures, coordinates. Confirmed enemy facility, the commander said. No active air defense. Target must be neutralized before dawn. Location? Mason asked, narrowing his eyes. That's Sector Delta 9, Grid 11.9 North, 62.3 East. That's near. You are not to concern yourself with geography, Captain. Target profile is classified. This is a Tier 1 directive, Washington endorsed. A beat of silence passed between them. Then, do you understand? Mason nodded. But inside, something twisted. He walked the hangar alone. F-15EX, Guardian, his bird, gleamed under white halogens, refueled and loaded with 2 AGM-158J SASM cruise missiles. Too much firepower for a facility, he thought. The ground crew saluted. Mason nodded. But when he climbed into the cockpit and powered up systems, his heart, after years of stoicism, beat just a little faster. The autopilot route was already embedded. T-minus 14 minutes to airspace lock, the AI co-pilot intoned. He stared at the digital map. There was no enemy installation where he was going. No bunkers, no radars. Just a dry valley. And 2 miles south, a refugee encampment. Mostly women and children. Eagle 1, confirmed trajectory, a voice buzzed in his headset. Eagle 1 confirms, Mason replied. This is not a simulation. ROE applies. Mission time 0348. Understood. But he didn't engage weapons. He switched to thermal overlay. What he saw froze his blood. Dozens of human heat signatures, sleeping close together, no weapons, no patrols. This wasn't an enemy base. This was a shelter. Command, this is Eagle 1. Go ahead. Are you sure about the coordinates? I have live thermal imaging here. Civilians. A pause. Then, Eagle 1, maintain course. Repeat, maintain course. Execute as ordered. They're not hostile. You are not to second-guess the chain of command. I am looking at a refugee camp. I repeat, civilian non-combatants. The channel clicked off. Silence. Then a new voice came on, one he recognized immediately. Brigadier General Anson Drake. Mason, this is Drake. You were chosen for this mission because we trust you. Do not make us regret that. Sir, I have visual confirmation. No hostiles. If I strike this, I'll be committing a war crime. You will be protecting national security. You don't have the clearance to know how. Just follow through. No, sir. I need a lawful order. You have one. Mason turned off comms. At 0343, he dropped altitude. At 0345, he released flares, fake launch sequence. At 0346, he locked both missiles into safe mode. At 0348, he radioed, "Mission complete, bird returning to base, no resistance encountered." He landed 20 minutes later, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The room wasn't marked interrogation, but it didn't need to be. No clock, no windows, just the hum of recycled air and 2 cameras Mason could spot without looking. He sat in silence for 47 minutes. Then the door opened. A man in a gray suit, not uniform, walked in, flanked by a base officer who didn't introduce himself. "Captain Kincaid," the suit said smoothly, "I'm Agent Rowe, Department of Defense Liaison. This is just a conversation." Mason didn't respond. "Tell me what happened at 0348 hours this morning." "Check the telemetry, it's all there." "We have, but we'd prefer your words." "I followed flight plan. Target verified, no combatants. I disengaged weapons, no strike occurred." Rowe nodded, then tapped the table. "Captain, do you consider yourself a patriot?" "I consider myself a pilot, a lawful one. And yet you chose to override a Tier 1 strike." "I saw civilians. You can't bomb a refugee camp and call it war." Rowe smiled like a man who'd already written the ending. "You were given legal orders. Chain of command exists for a reason. And conscience exists for a reason." That wiped the smile. The officer leaned in. "You're not in a position to preach. You're in violation of direct command under wartime protocol." Mason said nothing. He was returned to his cell. His wings had been stripped, his name tag removed. Outside, the base moved on like nothing had happened. Jets launched, flags flew. But inside, Mason knew he'd drawn a line, and they were about to erase him. That night, he got a visitor. Not a general, not a priest. A woman in uniform, 2nd Lieutenant, Army JAG Corps. She looked barely 30, dark curls pulled into a tight bun, eyes alert but not cold. "Captain Kincaid, I'm Lieutenant Eleanor Reese. I've been assigned as your defense counsel." "Assigned or warned away?" "Both." He chuckled dryly. "You're young. You're reckless. Why are you here?" She pulled out a folder. "Because what you did might have saved 50 lives, and because I don't believe you're the villain they're painting." "Then you're already in trouble." "I tend to gravitate towards it." She paused. "Tell me everything." For the next 3 hours, Mason spoke. About the coordinates, about the thermal scans, about the voice of General Drake. He even told her about the moment he looked at the missile lock screen, the green triangle glowing, and thought of his own daughter asleep back home. He had to choose what kind of man she'd grow up knowing. Eleanor didn't interrupt. She just wrote, "You know they'll charge you under Article 90. Disobeying a superior officer, with intent to disrupt an active combat mission. Is that what we call war crimes now?" She shut the folder gently. "I'll file for a formal Article 32 hearing. If they deny it, we go public. They'll bury it. Not if we speak first." Mason looked at her like she was insane. "You think 1 second lieutenant and 1 grounded pilot can beat the Pentagon?" She smiled. "No, but I think truth travels faster than silence, and if we're smart, we get it on record first." At 0600 hours the next morning, she filed motions, 3 of them. By 0900, they were all denied. By noon, her credentials were temporarily suspended pending internal review. But at 5:17 p.m., someone leaked the mission map to a reporter from Military Times, then the thermal images, then the flight data. No names, but enough to raise hell. The story trended within 6 hours. Was a U.S. pilot ordered to strike civilians? Refugee camp nearly hit in secret op. Whistleblower in uniform? Inside the brig, Mason was ordered not to speak to the press. He didn't. He just watched the walls begin to shake. The courtroom wasn't in Washington. It was buried beneath Fort Camden, a secure military tribunal hall rarely used, mostly for show trials and internal matters. No press, no recordings, no jury. Just 6 senior officers, a judge advocate general in dress blues, and Captain Mason Kincaid in a chainless uniform. He wasn't in shackles, but his silence was expected. Lieutenant Eleanor Reese sat beside him, lips tight, eyes scanning every face. Across from them, the prosecution wore medals on their chests and smugness in their eyes. This proceeding is not a court-martial, the judge clarified. This is a preliminary fitness hearing to determine if Captain Kincaid should be tried under Article 90 and 134. With all due respect, sir, Eleanor said, you've already denied our Article 32 motion. You've denied discovery. What's left to determine? Order, Lieutenant. She sat. Colonel Baines, the lead prosecutor, began. Captain Kincaid received direct orders to neutralize a hostile target in a combat zone. He refused. He falsified his telemetry. He staged a decoy launch. He compromised operational integrity. He turned. Captain, do you deny this? Mason stood slowly. I deny that it was a lawful order, gasps murmured from behind the bench. I verified the target. It was a civilian site. No hostiles, no defense systems, women, children, non-combatants. Baines smiled. And yet you acted alone. No confirmation, no orders to abort. Because I was told to strike regardless. The judge's brow lifted. You're alleging misconduct at command level? Yes, sir. Baines interrupted. We request immediate dismissal of this line. The captain is speculating to mask insubordination. Eleanor rose. Permission to present evidence, sir. The judge sighed. Eleanor, we've already ruled on your exhibits. Not this one. She held up a new folder. The room shifted. Where did you get that? Baines barked. It was delivered anonymously to my office last night. Chain of custody is inadmissible. It contains audio. The judge nodded. Play it. A low hum. Then, Mason, this is Drake. You were chosen for this mission because we trust you. Do not make us regret that. If I strike this, I'll be committing a war crime. You don't have the clearance to know how. Just follow through. Silence. The courtroom froze. Is that General Anson Drake? The judge asked. We believe so. Voice print match pending. The panel whispered among themselves. Is this verified? Baines demanded. Can you deny the voice? This is a setup. Eleanor didn't blink. Then subpoena the general. The judge banged his gavel. An hour later, to everyone's shock, the doors opened, and General Anson Drake walked in. No salute, no defense team. I'm told I've been requested. The judge looked pale. General, are you aware that you're implicated in an unauthorized use of force order? Drake's face didn't flinch. Yes. Do you deny the voice in the recording? A pause. Then, yes. Gasps. You gave the order? I followed higher instruction. Who gave you that instruction? He looked at Mason, then at Eleanor. That's classified. General, this is not a classified setting. This is a court of military law. Then I'll invoke my right to remain silent. General, I'll submit my resignation. With that, Drake turned and walked out. Mason didn't breathe for 10 seconds. Neither did anyone else. Eleanor finally whispered, that wasn't just an admission. That was a time bomb. By the next day, someone leaked the audio to the press, and a picture of the tribunal, and a partial transcript. By noon, the hashtag trended globally, hashtag pilot who said no. They released Mason without ceremony. No apology, no escort. Just a silent walk down a long concrete hallway that emptied into a sunrise too bright for someone who'd just spent 5 days underground. Lieutenant Eleanor Reese was waiting beside a dented government sedan. Her uniform jacket was wrinkled, her expression tense. "You're free. For now," she said. "That makes one of us," Mason replied. Back at the motel she'd rented off base, Eleanor pulled the blinds shut and dropped her bag on the floor. 3 surveillance vans outside. One unmarked sedan followed us from Fort Camden. Phones tapped. My JAG account is under internal review. So, we're not done. We're just beginning. She poured 2 cups of stale motel coffee. Someone's cleaning up, quietly. Drake's resignation hit the wires last night, but the Pentagon's spinning it as health reasons. And the refugee camp? Already bulldozed. No trace left. Satellite feeds are missing. Missing? She nodded. They're rewriting the record, Mason, bit by bit. He leaned back. Then we hit them where they can't control it. Where's that? Public court. Eleanor stared at him for a long beat. There's no case, no body, no standing, no admission. But we have voices, and one of them is mine. That night, Eleanor received a visitor. Not at the door, through the window. A note was slipped under the glass, no name, no fingerprints, just 2 lines. "You have no allies inside. Ask Colonel Bishop. If you go forward, you will disappear." Colonel Bishop was an old mentor of Eleanor's, retired 3 years ago. Rumor was he left after a disagreement with the chain of command. She called him. 3 rings. Then, "Who told you to call me?" "They said I would vanish." "You're already halfway there." "Mason Kincaid is alive. We can still do something." "That man is walking dead, Lieutenant, and if you're with him, you are too." "Colonel, what happened to the mission? Why would a general knowingly target civilians?" Silence. Then, "Because the facility nearby, the one next to the camp, was never meant to be on record. It was a ghost site. Biotech surveillance experiments, illegal even by our standards." Why strike civilians? They weren't the target. The refugees wandered too close. Command panicked. So they ordered a silent erase. Exactly. And you knew? I saw the logistics manifest. I said something. 2 days later, my clearance was revoked. I resigned before I was reassigned. Can you testify? No, but I'll send you something. What? The original drone flight plan, pre-alteration. It shows everything. Then the line went dead. The file arrived 4 hours later, encrypted, military-grade format, and dated 2 days before Mason's flight. The coordinates matched a covert testing ground, not an enemy camp. Eleanor's hands shook. She whispered, "They didn't just lie. They reprogrammed the mission to use Mason as the weapon, and then erase him." At 2:17 a.m., someone pounded on their motel door. Not government, not police. A man in civilian clothes, bleeding from the forehead, whispered through the crack, "My name's Joel. I was part of drone surveillance at Norcom. I saw the feeds, I saved a backup. They're killing witnesses. Please, let me in." Eleanor drew her sidearm. Mason checked the windows. After 5 minutes, they let him in. He collapsed. By morning, Joel was gone. Not dead, just gone. The door was still locked. No sound, no blood. Just an empty spot on the motel carpet where he had collapsed hours before, and the faintest smell of bleach in the hallway. Mason gripped the thumb drive like a grenade. "They're inside the system," he said. "This isn't just surveillance anymore, it's sweep and erase." "Then we go public, now," Eleanor said. "Not through the news, they'll intercept it." She nodded. The drop point. The drop point wasn't a place, it was a digital dead man's switch, a private server connected to 4 international journalism collectives, designed by whistleblowers for whistleblowers. If activated properly, it would send their files to over 100 independent journalists in 23 countries. No censorship, no retrieval. Only one upload chance. If intercepted mid-transfer, the data would self-destruct. "If we do this," Eleanor whispered, "they'll brand us traitors. And if we don't, we'll prove them right." They drove 117 miles south, deep into the Mojave, to an abandoned ranger station. No signal, no eyes. Mason set up the laptop. Eleanor assembled a directional antenna. The file was ready. Drone footage, Joel's backup. Audio files, Drake's voice. Thermal scans. Original flight manifest. Redacted maps of the test site. Eleanor's hand hovered over the keyboard. "Once I hit send, there's no going back. We were never supposed to go forward." She pressed enter. The loading bar appeared. Uploading, 2%. Then the lights went out. A gunshot shattered the window. The laptop flipped. "Move!" Mason tackled Eleanor to the ground as bullets pierced the rotted walls. The antenna sparked and fell. A black SUV skidded to a stop outside. 3 men, no insignias, opened fire with suppressed rifles. Mason reached for the motel chair leg, broke it off, and hurled it through a side window. They rolled out just before the room lit up in flames. "The drive!" Eleanor screamed. "I've got it," Mason shouted, pulling the scorched laptop under his coat. They ran into the desert. By sunset, they found a cave carved into a dry ridge. Mason collapsed, chest heaving. Eleanor crouched, inspecting the laptop. Drives damaged, upload failed. "Any backup?" "If we can reach signal again, maybe." He looked at her. Dust in her hair, blood on her collar, face still steady. "You don't have to stay with me, Reese." "Shut up, sir. You outrank me now." She smiled. "Still doesn't mean you get to quit." At dawn, headlights approached, but not fast, slow, weaving. Not a government SUV. It was a truck. A battered Toyota, tan paint peeling, a sat dish tied with rope on top. Inside, the driver was an old man with sunburned skin and a veteran's silence. No name. Just handed them a sat-link device and drove off again. Eleanor blinked. Who was that? A friend of Bishop's, maybe. Or maybe the truth still has friends. They set up the drive again. This time, it worked. The drop point blinked, upload complete, dispatching. 23 seconds later, the first ping came in. Journalist 01 confirmed. Then another. Le Monde received. Al Jazeera active. Reuters verifying. The Intercept green light. The truth was out, and they couldn't stop it now. But neither could Mason or Eleanor stop the next phase. An hour later, they received a private message from an encrypted channel. Nice move. Your lives are now under open contract. Leave the country if you can. You have 48 hours. Eleanor read it aloud. Guess we're famous. Mason echoed. The private airstrip was dead quiet. No traffic, no lights, just a decommissioned hangar, a rusted jet fueling station, and the outline of a Cessna that had seen better decades. But inside, under canvas and dust, was something else entirely. A black bird. Not the SR-71 of the Cold War. This one had no serial, no transponder, no allegiance. Just matte black skin, hyper-composite shell, and the power to outrun nearly any aircraft on Earth. It had no weapons, but it had range. "Where did you get this?" Eleanor asked, stunned. "It was part of Project Raven, off-books recon initiative. I flew her once in 2011. She's been buried since." "She's untraceable?" "Only if we fly blind. No GPS, no flight beacon, just stars and instinct." Eleanor gave a sharp nod. "Then let's fly." They loaded only what mattered. The last backup drive, a printed affidavit signed by Joel, Bishop's drone manifest, Mason's flight suit, and a USB sealed in Eleanor's boot, her resignation letter addressed to Congress, marked, "To be opened if I die." At 2:42 a.m., the Blackbird's engines roared alive. The hangar doors shuddered open. Mason sat at the controls, fingers steady. Eleanor was in the co-pilot seat. "Where to?" she asked. "Iceland, then Oslo. Friend of a friend is waiting." "And after that?" "Wherever the sky lets us land." He pushed the throttle. They soared into the night. But freedom never comes easy. 90 miles out, a blip appeared. Then 3 more. Unmarked jets, fast, closing in. The radio buzzed. "Unregistered aircraft, divert immediately or you will be forced down." Mason didn't respond. "You are violating restricted airspace." "No," Mason finally said into the mic, calm as stone. "You're violating what's left of the Constitution. This is your final warning." Eleanor reached for the mic. "This is Lieutenant Eleanor Reese, Army JAG Corps. You are now being recorded. Any action against this aircraft will be treated as an act of state aggression against lawful whistleblower evidence already distributed to international bodies." Silence. Then static. Then, the jets broke formation. "They're backing off," Mason said in disbelief. "Or they're letting us go because killing us would make us martyrs." "What's the difference?" She looked at him. "The story." They touched down in Reykjavik just before dawn. An embassy official waited in a van with a blanket and a thermos of coffee. "You're safe here. For now." "For now," Mason echoed. Back in the U.S., the story had detonated. Congress opened a hearing. The Pentagon denied everything until one of its own analysts stepped forward. Then another. And then Joel reappeared alive on an encrypted live stream, showing his wound and his badge and his truth. The hearing was moved to live broadcast. Millions watched. And when a congresswoman held up Mason's original flight logs and asked, "Is this the America we swore to defend?" the room went silent. Eleanor was granted asylum in Norway. Mason declined all interviews. He bought a boat. No name, no flag. He kept the wings in a wooden box by his bed, not for what they meant then, but for what he made them mean later. One day he received a letter. "Your story is being taught in the academy now, as a case study, as a warning, but also as a hope. Colonel Bishop." Mason smiled. They never went home, but the truth did. And for men like Mason Kincaid, that was all that ever mattered.